Have you ever wondered about the complex dynamics of international power play? Let's dive into recent events in Yemen. In order to counter attacks by the Houthi group on commercial shipping vessels in the Red Sea, the U.S. military launched a series of missile strikes on Houthi-controlled sites. These strikes, hitting over 24 locations and more than 60 targets, were not an isolated incident but part of an ongoing response to Houthi aggression. The carefully calibrated retaliation by the US and UK warships against Houthi strikes has been going on for several months now. Now that we've set the stage, let's move on to the timeline of these missile strikes. To understand the full picture, we need to start from the beginning. The chronology of chaos unfolded on a Friday when the United States military initiated a series of airstrikes on Houthi-controlled sites in Yemen. This was a response to the rebel group's attacks on commercial shipping vessels in the Red Sea. The strikes were comprehensive, hitting 28 locations and over 60 targets. The scale of these operations elucidated the seriousness of the situation. Yet, the threat wasn't entirely neutralized. A radar site, still operational, posed a potential hazard to maritime traffic, leading to further strikes. President Joe Biden didn't mince his words when addressing the situation. He warned the Houthi rebels of possible future strikes, making it clear that their actions would not go unanswered. The Western warships from the US and the UK have been retaliating against Houthi strikes for several months, underlining the ongoing nature of this conflict. The Houthis, however, have remained defiant. They pledged to continue their attacks in support of Hamas, even as their strikes have hit vessels with no known ties to Israel. This has led to the US Navy issuing a warning to American-flagged vessels to avoid areas around Yemen for the next 72 hours. Meanwhile, the Houthis have vowed retaliation, raising the prospect of a wider conflict. Military experts believe that a series of strikes and negotiations will be necessary to deter the Houthis from further attacks. The Pentagon stated that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered the strikes while recovering from surgery, highlighting the urgency of the situation. The extent of the damage and the impact on Houthi capabilities are still being assessed. The Houthis have warned that the US and UK will face consequences for their aggression. That brings us to the present, where the situation continues to escalate. What's the fallout from these missile strikes? Let's examine the aftermath and the potential repercussions. The strikes have significantly disrupted key supply lines from Iran to the Houthi rebels in Yemen. It's like a massive roadblock on a critical highway, hampering the movement of weapons and resources. The US and UK airstrikes targeted Houthi radar stations, storage facilities, and launch sites for drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles, leaving the rebels in a challenging position. In addition to this, US and French forces have captured a significant amount of weapons intended for the rebels. It's as if the enemy's arsenal was laid bare, significantly depleting their firepower. And it doesn't stop there. U.S. Navy SEALs disrupted Iranian shipments of weapons to Yemen, further exacerbating the rebels' predicament. But the situation is far from resolved. The Houthis have pledged retaliation, raising the prospect of a wider conflict. This isn't just an isolated incident, but a potential tipping point in a larger, more complex situation. As we see, the ripple effects of these strikes are far-reaching and could potentially transform the face of the conflict. Now that we've walked through the timeline of events and their aftermath, let's recap the key points. The United States has been actively responding to Houthi attacks on commercial shipping vessels with a series of missile strikes on Houthi-controlled sites in Yemen. These strikes have been conducted from the Red Sea, hitting a significant number of targets. The strikes have not been without consequence. The Houthis have pledged to continue their attacks in support of Hamas, and vessels without any known ties to Israel have also been hit. The United States Navy has warned American-flagged vessels to avoid areas around Yemen, indicating the seriousness of the situation. Furthermore, the strikes have disrupted key supply lines from Iran to the Houthi rebels, effectively cutting off their supply of weaponry, at least for the short term. This could potentially impact the conflict in Yemen, although the long-term effects are still unclear. It's important to note that the United States and its allies have been working to prevent Iran from supplying the Houthis with weapons for several years, and these recent actions are part of a larger strategy. As this situation continues to evolve, it's crucial to stay informed and understand the larger implications of these actions on the global stage.